Hey guys, it's Cream, aka Miss Cream of the Crop, and we're continuing our series of interviewing the team, or at least the contributors to 216 The Beat radio station. And I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Alan from Breaking and Entering Radio. They're based in Milwaukee, and I know you guys are like, Milwaukee, hip hop. Yes, hip hop does live in Milwaukee. People
Yes,
do
very
live in
much so.
Milwaukee. Outside of all the things you guys have seen on the news, there's some good stuff that comes
Absolutely.
from Milwaukee. So I want to go ahead and introduce you guys to Alan. How are you this afternoon?
I am doing well. It has been a busy time for sure, but glad to be here doing this with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this with me. As I said earlier, this is just my way of saying thank you to everyone that contributes to the station. Like, we all work really, really hard, and I think that people see how much fun a lot of on-air personalities have, but I don't think they understand how much work goes into doing what we do. And you guys seem to have a pretty good foothold on the indie um, scene in Milwaukee. So tell us a little bit about Breaking and Entering. Like, how did you get started? When did you first realize that you had this interest in music, and did you always want to um, have a radio show or a media platform?
Basically, so it's kind of a long story, but I'll cut it down a little bit. Breaking and Entering was a podcast originally
Okay.
back in 2009. So before podcasts were even like a thing. Me and a buddy from high school said we were going to do it, and then we went on to go do college student radio. Did like 2 semesters of that, and then around like 2014 was really like the blog era of hip hop. So that's kind of when like things like Fake Shore Drive and Two Dope Boys and things like that were huge. So that was where you discovered music, and we had our website. We were done doing radio at that point, just because life got busy, but I started running this website and showcasing Milwaukee music of all different genres, and that ultimately led into about fast forward to 2020, the pandemic. We had nothing that we could do. One of the other online stations in Milwaukee, actually, or in Wisconsin, Radio 22 out of Madison, Wisconsin, hit me up and asked if we wanted to do a radio show. And I said, yeah, but we want to make this as big as possible so we can get to as many stations that we can. And, lo and behold, a lot of hard work and a lot of DMs sent, and we're on 216 The Beat Radio.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. So when you guys tell people like, hey, we're in Milwaukee and we play hip hop amongst other genres, what is their first reaction to hip hop in Milwaukee?
I think a lot of people actually really from outside of Milwaukee don't realize how much music is being made here. But I would say that Milwaukee, if you've never been, is a big city. It's the biggest city in Wisconsin, and there's a lot of hip hop. It's the majority of music that's being made here. So there's everything from the like underground, like more street rap that lives on YouTube, to like some more stylish kind of like chill kind of hip hop, which is a lot more of the stuff that we play. And all sorts of different facets in between of like indie, like kind of like lo-fi sounding stuff. Like there's a crazy amount of music being made in Milwaukee in general, but hip hop especially is actually the predominant genre of music here.
I love that. So for yourself, how important is it for you and your platform to make an impact in Milwaukee for the indie artist?
So that's something that I think that we pride ourselves on more than anything else. We have covered all the way up to Summerfest and Lollapalooza in Chicago and all the big festivals and things like that. But I always tell people that we cover everything from the festival level, like the biggest artists in the world that are playing those things, down to some kid that's making something dope in his basement. Because I think that there's a lot of it. And before starting Breaking and Entering, I was the kid producing music literally in the basement or in a back office or whatever, and just trying to do what I could on my laptop to make something that was cool. So I really want to give back to the city in that sense and make sure that, no artist is too big or too small to land on breaking and entering, basically.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. That's something that I really was very adamant about as far as starting 216 Radio was the fact that like I grew up in entertainment and I did a lot of stuff with a lot of indie artists and a lot of I was involved a lot in the underground scene here in Cleveland, and I just realized that there weren't a lot of outlets that were interested in playing indie artists, especially playing their music where they would get credit for their spins. So I felt the same way. It's just like there's a guy that's in his basement that makes music and he's really dope. It's just no one's ever heard of him before. And he also
Exactly.
deserves to have the opportunity to be heard. So that's one of the reasons that I even decided and I continue to put as much into 216 radio station as I have because I just felt like whether you were big or small, you deserve a platform because you put your hard work and effort into your artistry. So when did you first fall in love with hip hop? Like when was the first time that you knew I love this?
That's an interesting one. I grew up skateboarding.
Okay.
I was, 12 years old, early. I was like 12-ish when I was really, really heavy into like skateboarding. So that was blowing up around the time that like the Tony Hawk video games were out there. And I was a punk rock kid. I grew up listening to a lot of like NoFX and the Ramones and things like that. So hip hop wasn't really on my radar. And then Eminem came out, but then the Tony Hawk games introduced me to like different styles of hip hop that were a little more like it wasn't just the mainstream stuff. I remember specifically the Grind Session video game that came out for like the first PlayStation was my introduction to Jurassic 5, which is still one of my like favorite hip hop groups. Charlie Tuna still has the best rap voice in the world to me. So that was like the introduction really. And then as I got into like 7th and 8th grade in high school and things like that, like I had cousins that rapped and I started making beats for them because I was always interested in music and I thought I could do it better than them because they were making their own beats. So that kind of was when I really got bit by the bug. Was probably about, I would say probably, let's say like 8th grade for sure, because it was the thing that also I grew up in I went to a small school and everybody at my school in my grade listened to hip hop. We had, it was a little Catholic school, but there's kids running around with like fat farms with like they had Air Force Ones is a big thing, and then which we call them Dookies here in Milwaukee. I don't know what you call them down there. But, and then like the Fat Farm shoes were huge. Everybody had those. So I was just like this weird skater kid that, ended up getting into hip hop just through all of my friends and the right time at the right place. And then it kind of just was something that I latched onto, as I got older.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we call them forces here in Cleveland.
Okay.
But, I think that's amazing that you discovered hip hop through Tony Hawk. That's so crazy that it was Tony Hawk. He's the one that I think Tony Hawk. What's crazy about that story is he introduced you to hip hop, and he is the reason that I feel a lot of hip hop kids got introduced to skateboarding.
Yeah,
like
I think so for sure. The video games,
Yeah, so it's just crazy how those two worlds collided and the effect that he had on both worlds. And I know that Tony Hawk knows that he's a legend, but I don't think he really realizes like his impact that
totally.
he had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's totally there are generations of kids that were so influenced by like those video game soundtracks. Like the soundtracks were what kind of made the game, and really, I mean, it was at the point at one point like when like the second or third game came out, they were putting out the soundtrack as like a CD, as like a compilation album because but kids discovered a whole generation of music through that. That that was the impact of it,
Yeah. Yeah, he really did have a big impact as far as the way that people outside of the skater world actually view skating. I mean, there are people who still, no matter what you do, there's always going to be a group of people that hates everything. You
Yeah.
know what I
Welcome
mean?
to the
So
internet.
there's always going to be a group of people who hate the hip hop kids, they hate the punk rock kids, they hate the skater kids, they hate the emo kids, they hate everything. But I think that with Tony Hawk, he brought a lot of worlds together, and I think that he helped explode skateboarding across different genres, different ethnicities, different countries. Like he made it huge to where
Yeah.
everyone wanted to be a skater. It didn't matter who you were. Everyone thought they could skate at that time. And it's crazy that even in 2021, people are still trying to be a skater. And they're
Oh
still
yeah.
trying to rap.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody's trying to rap. Everybody wants to be an athlete or a skater. I think that that it's a new generation of it now that are getting
Mhm.
into it, and they're getting into it in different ways.
Yeah.
Like the combination of hip hop and skateboarding is definitely something. Like if you look at Lil Wayne, I mean, he is probably the most famous skater that raps.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. It's like there's a generation of kids that they just need one person to be like the coolest person in the room that is into hip hop and skating, and they're going to get into both of them right away.
Absolutely. Or just one person that's really cool that opens their eyes to something that they've never even thought of or
Mm.
even imagined that they would be doing in their lifetime. So I think that's dope that Tony Hawk is the reason that you got into hip hop, and then it just expanded into breaking and entering. And so with breaking and entering, where do you guys see yourselves in the future? Like you started out college, you started out, you pivoted because of the pandemic, it sounds like. So where else do you think your platform is going to pivot in the future? Have you guys thought about that, or are you just like, look, we're just riding our wave right now?
It's a little bit of both, always. I think that for us, like, so before the pandemic, we were doing shows, we were promoting shows, in addition to running our website, in addition to some of the other things that we're doing. It's grown now that to the point where we have like a channel on Twitch that we play music videos all the time. We have our radio show that we air every week, and we come in and we record every week. Like we really just kind of the last year has made us go, okay, how do we keep the momentum going? And so bringing things like obviously I'm not going to be throwing shows out of my house or anything like that. But I was
Please,
like, but we can
no.
talk about music and we can create content from home. And, now that the world is starting to open up cautiously again, I think that, we really want to take it into the direction of like, how can we bring Milwaukee music as far out to the world as we can, but also bring a world of Milwaukee here. So if it's touring acts, if it's, somebody that's buzzing underground nationwide, that we can bring them to Milwaukee somehow in some feasible sense, either physically or digitally, like do an interview with them or whatever. Like, I think that's going to be part of what we do next. But we really, to some extent, you never know what's going to happen. So we try to just kind of go with the flow and see what happens with it.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has really influenced most of us to just go with the flow because we have
Mhm.
no idea. Because at one point it's like, hey, we're reopening, and then everyone's like, yeah, that didn't seem like that was a good idea. Let's just slow it down a little bit. And then it's like,
Right.
we're reopened again, and then now it's like, but the variant. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like everyone, I think, at this point is really just learning how to go with the flow and really just be open to pivoting however it is that we need to pivot based on whatever is going on around us. So one of the things I do want to make a comment on is the fact that your room is awesome with all these records, and I feel really bad because I have a whole record collection, and usually I do the interviews in the studio that has all of our records, and I'm sitting here with this flower, and you're putting me to shame right now.
Hey, it's a great looking plant. This is part of the reaction to the pandemic for sure. Like, so I moved into this house like 2 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and the first thing I did was organize this record collection and get it up. It's a lot of records that I inherited, but doing all of the online content that we do, like you'll see me in front of these records all the time because I had to learn like okay, how do you set up like a cool looking background? How do you make this interesting for people? Like,
Yeah.
You got 2 seconds to get their attention on TikTok or Twitch or whatever, like, or Instagram,
Yeah.
so like, it's all kind of like just reacting to the world.
I love it. I inherited my records as well. My great aunt gave me the collection that I have today. So that's how I got my records also. I can't take the credit for it, but I'm sitting here like, I feel so bad because I have my collection too, and I'm
Yeah.
interviewing him with a plant behind me, but but I definitely appreciate you for taking time out of your day to tell us a little bit more about you, how your platform got started. Tell us all about breaking and entering Milwaukee, the scene. And it's just been amazing getting to know you. And like I said, I really wanted to let everyone know who's behind all the flyers that we
Thank you
post.
for taking time to sit down with me, and it's cool to put a name to a face. Now I know I'm good in Cleveland. When I go down to
Yes,
Cleveland, I'm
yes,
good over there. So I mean,
absolutely.
that's the cool part of it too. Like I get to, so I am very appreciative for everything that 216 The Beat does for us and for artists all over.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Guys. Thank you. I was going to say you guys. It's just you sitting there, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Can't wait to do more with 216 The Beat.